what I'd like to do today is to start getting to what we talked about last time. Most ingredients for mental health, according to Chassidus, are lowliness and selflessness, or self-nullification. The only problem is that this is not from 1 Samuel, it's actually from 2 Samuel. I made a mistake when I wrote it. It's from Shmuel Beis, actually. So it should be 2 Samuel chapter 6. Okay. What we're going to read about is what happened. You know that David wasn't immediately king when he was born. He only became king at the age of 30. And then for 7 years he was king only over the tribe of Yehuda, of Judah. After 7 years, it was already a number of years after Saul was dead. King Amelech, he was already dead. He was killed by the Philistines, by the Plishtim, and then able to get all of Am Yisrael behind him. In this, really, the second part of Shmuel, 2 Samuel, is talking about how David built his kingdom once he was king of all of Am Yisrael. So that's where we're starting from. What was David's greatest dream? Why did he want to be king? He wanted to achieve something. And it's not at all clear that what he wanted to achieve was to unite the Jewish people. He wanted to do something much more because he knew the unification. We'll say it the way. Right. To build the Beis HaMikdash. Why? Because there's no unity without the Beis HaMikdash. As we know, we see today in Eretz Yisrael, we see today all over the world, Jews can be very helpful to one another, they can care about one another, but there's no real unity when we don't worship together, when we don't have this idea of a common, call it picture or goal of worshiping Hashem together. And that's what David wanted to work for. That's what he tried to do. So he finally king. He's been saving up for building the Beis HaMikdash from the first time that he had a war. What was his first war? With Goliath, right? With that huge giant from the Philistines. And he was showered with presents after he won that battle. And he started collecting the gold and the jewelry that was thrown at him. He started collecting it for the purpose of building Beis HaMikdash. For David, building the Beis HaMikdash is the purpose of his life. Now, we're not talking about some who has a purpose to build, a house or wants to build a company or something like that. This man is a neshama klalis. He's a general soul. He feels the pain of the entire people, and he's representing the goal of the entire people together. And he wants to make the Beis HaMikdash. What's his first step? The first step that he has is he's going to bring Aron Kodesh from where it was. We'll see in a moment where it was. But it wasn't anymore in the tabernacle. You know that when they came into Eretz Yisrael, they took the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and they placed it first in Shiloh. It was there for 369 years. Then it moved to Nov and Giv'on. And the Ark of the Covenant, the Aron Kodesh, was in it. But then there was a war in the beginning of the years of Shmuel. There was a war with the Plishtim, and the captured. It was captured by the Plishtim. And when it was removed, when it was returned, because the Plishtim couldn't hold on to it, it was placed in somebody's house. We'll see in a moment. So David's first step in building the Beis HaMikdash, and this again is his life's goal. He's 37 years old now, 38 maybe even closer to 40. And he's going now to start the whole reason why he's alive, why he's the king. He's going to start building the Beis HaMikdash by bringing the Aron Kodesh to his new city. Where's the city? Where's his palace? In a place called Ir David. Ir David is the southern side of what today we call the Old City. It's beyond the walls, it stretches down. And he's going to bring the ark there, He's going to bring the Aron Kodesh there, and that's going to be the first step in his construction of the Beis HaMikdash. So let's read what happens. Remember, this is the most, he's been building up for this for 40 years of his life. This is the whole reason why he's in this business called being king. So David again assembled all the picked men of Israel. Picked men of Israel means that these were his, you can call them his pkidim. These were his workers, the people, the bureaucracy that he sent around the land of Israel to govern the people. 30,000 strong. Then David and all the troops that were with him set out from Baalim of Yehudah to bring up from there the ark of God, to which the name was attached. Which name is he talking about? The name of Hashem, the name of hosts enthroned on the cherubim. Okay, he's going to bring the ark. What did they do though? They loaded the ark of God onto a new cart and conveyed it, meaning they carried it on this new cart from the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill. And Avinadab's sons, Avinadab was a Levi, and his two sons, Uzzah and Achio, guided the new cart. So every child knows you're not supposed to do this. What does every child know? How do you transport the ark? How do you take the ark? How are you supposed to take it?
You carry it on the poles.
The Levites carry it on the poles, and the poles are always in it. You can't take the poles out because the poles were constructed in such a way that they were thicker on the edge than they were in the middle. So once the poles were inserted, they couldn't be taken out. Okay? And they took it on a new cart. What happened? Meanwhile, David and all the house of Israel danced before God to the sound of all kinds of cypress wood instruments with lyres, harps, timbrels, sistrums, and cymbals. I don't even know what all these are. I hardly know what the words mean in Hebrew. So they're dancing before it. Are they dancing before it? Not exactly. We'll see what it means in a moment. But when they came to the threshing floor of Nachon, should be an H here. Uzzah, who's one of the two sons of he's a Levi, but instead of carrying the cart, he's carrying the Aron, he's escorting the cart, he's next to it. What happens? He reached out for the ark of God and grasped it for the oxen that stumbled. So there were oxen in the cart, and it looked like they were shaking because they moved over something, some stone or whatever it was. And Uzzah reaches out to steady the ark so that it doesn't fall off the cart. God was incensed at Uzzah. He was angry at Uzzah, and God struck him down on the spot for his indiscretion, for touching the ark. And he died there beside the ark of God. David was distressed because God had inflicted a breach upon Uzzah, and that place was named Peretz Uzzah, and as it is still called today. David was afraid of God that day. He said, "How can I let the ark of God come to me?" So David would not bring the ark of God to his place in the city of David as he had planned. Instead, David diverted it to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. The ark of God remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months, and God blessed Obed-Edom and his whole household. It was reported to David, God has blessed Obed-Edom's house and all that belongs to him because of the ark of God. Thereupon David went and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David, amid rejoicing. Again, but this time he doesn't put it on a cart, and it's apparently taken the right way, because when the bearers of the ark of God, meaning there were Levites bearing it, carrying it, had moved forward 6 paces, he sacrificed an ox and a fatling. David whirled with all his might before God. David was girt, meaning he was wearing a linen ephod. Ephod is like a skirt that you put over your clothes. It was a sign of being a prophet. The Rebbe has a sikh. Does it mean that David was a prophet, or does it mean that he was only the student of prophets? As the ark of God entered the city of David, thus David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of God with shouts and with blasts of the horn, connected now to Shana. As the ark of God entered the city of David, Michal, daughter of Saul, looked out of the window and saw King David leaping and whirling before God, and she despised him for it. They brought in the ark of God and set it up in its place inside the tent which David had pitched for it in the city of David. Again, this is the beginning of the building of the temple. And David sacrificed burnt offerings and offerings of well-being before God. When David finished sacrificing the burnt offerings and the offerings of well-being, he blessed the people in the name of the God of hosts. He distributed among all the people, the entire multitude of Israel, men and women alike, to each a loaf of bread, a cake made in a pan, and a raisin cake. Then all the people left for their homes. Now David saw what had happened. David went home to greet his household. And Michal, remember, she was the one who despised him for the way he was dancing before the ark. Michal, daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, "Didn't the king of Israel do himself honor, exposing himself today in the sight of the maidservants of his subjects as one of the riffraff," that's quite a word, "might expose himself?" David answered Michal. He saw how much she despised him for what he had done. "It was before God who chose me," and now he rubs it into her, "instead of your father." Because who was Michal? She was the daughter of Shaul, the previous king, who Hashem had said, "You won't be king." Hashem had removed Shaul from being king. So it was before God who chose me instead of your father and all his family. All his family refers to Yonatan, who was supposed to be the king after Shaul, and appointed me ruler over God's people Israel. I will dance before God and dishonor myself even more, and be lowly in my own esteem, or in my own eyes. But among the maidservants that you speak of, among them I will be honored. So today Michal of Shaul had no children. This is the chapter. Okay, now that we have a certain picture of what we're going to be talking about, I want to begin to take apart what happened here. Okay? Again, I stress in the beginning, this is the whole reason that David is king. He wants to build the temple, and for him the first step is to bring the Ark of the Covenant into Yerushalayim, into his city. This is his parade. This is something, it's not by chance that he's dancing and all the important people are there dancing next to the procession here, which is really in the first time it's a cart. My camera is off. How could my camera be off? That's weird. I see myself. So, do you see me? Does everybody see me? No? You can't see me?
No.
Go on Facebook. On my Facebook page, you can see me. I'm just kidding. Let me try to stop the video and start it again and see if that works. How about now? Any good?
No.
Still no. That's the strangest thing. You know, it happened to us yesterday in our meeting also. I wonder if it has something to do with Zoom. Okay. I don't want to waste time, but last time it worked. So I'm going to leave for a second and come right back. I'm sorry for this. If it doesn't work, we'll continue with just audio. We'll continue in a moment. I'm having trouble with my Zoom class. So they come first because they're the class. In a moment we'll continue, hopefully. And now? Can you see me now?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, good.
Bad connection. Thank you guys for having your camera.
Okay, great. So now, this is the most important moment. What did Hashem do to David? Made a mistake. There's no question. Nobody argues that he didn't make a mistake. But no, this is what Hashem wanted. Is what Hashem wants, that we should build him a temple? What's going through David's mind? Even if I made a mistake, why, Hashem, did you do what? There's only one way to call it, and I usually use this because it's a little harsh. But Hashem, since I don't want to use a different word, I'll say he rained on his parade. David went to do a mitzvah, the most important mitzvah that a king can do, which is to build the Beis Hamikdash. And what does Hashem do to him? He spits in his face. There's no other way to put it. Understand what the situation is, what the predicament David has is. Here's a person who just fought for 13 years, and now he has a bit of rest, and the only thing he's been thinking about is doing Hashem's will to build the Beis Hamikdash. And when he started to do it, he made a mistake, but it was a strange mistake. It was oversight. It was some kind of foolish mistake. But for that, Hashem has to stop everything? You waited, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for almost 800 years already since the time that they came out of Egypt. They're finally going to build you a permanent dwelling, which is what you wanted, which is what you built the whole world for. What was the world created for? Because Hashem has a taiva, he has a craving to have a dwelling below. And David, who is the most devoted person ever, except for Moshe Rabbeinu maybe, to Hashem and his will, is going to build this Beis Hamikdash. He's bringing the Aron Kodesh. For heaven's sake, you couldn't overlook the fact that Uzzah sent his hand towards the ark. He didn't even touch it yet. He touched it. It said he grasped it. But that's all he did. And he's allowed to carry it, so he's not allowed to grasp it? What's going on? What is... So now let's take it to us. You want to do a mitzvah. And what happens? Your face. You can't do it. Something happens along the way. What's your response? Forget about a mitzvah. You want to do something nice for a friend. You plan a birthday party, but they're in a bad mood. And when they come home, or they come to where you invited them, not only are they not happy, they're upset at you. But I told you I don't want a birthday party this year, or anything like that happens. Or you bring somebody a present, and they frown, and it's not what they were looking for. Let's turn it around even more. Your parents bring you a present, and you frown and you say, that's not what I wanted. What's the response of the person who's been thwarted, the person who's been rejected? What's the response of a person you've been rejected in your life? David has just been rejected in the worst possible way in front of everybody. What's his reaction? What's your reaction? What's our reaction when this happens? There's no lower point in life. When you want to do something good, and not only doesn't it turn out the way you wanted it to, not only is it not a parade, you get slapped in the face. How do we respond to that? Well, you tell me. What? Somebody started saying something. Say again, Khani?
Upset.
You can be a little bit more harsh than just upset. What do you feel like doing? I'll tell you how I feel.
You're really frustrated.
And that's it? Frustrated? That's all you know? You don't have feelings?
You want me to tell you that I'm going to kill someone? Like...
Exactly. You feel like killing the person who rejected you. Not literally. But you feel bad enough that you want to hurt them. Why are you rejecting my gesture of goodness? We feel that way towards Hashem also, all the time. We certainly feel that way towards people. That, my friends, is your self-image at work. That is the Yetzer Hara at work. The Yetzer Hara who built your self-image says, you are the best thing since sliced bread. And you, when you do something good, should be rewarded. Remember what we talked about last time about drawing a picture and expecting to receive the praise? That's our self-image. That's how life is supposed to work. When I do something good, it should be rewarded. So I didn't even draw a picture here. I just did a good deed. So why is my good deed being rejected? That doesn't just hurt me, it hurts more than anything my self-image. With my self-image is that I'm a good person, and because I'm a good person and I do good things, I should receive a reward. And when that doesn't work out the way I wanted it to, and we'll see in a moment why it doesn't work out the way I wanted it to, then my natural reaction is to strike out at whoever rejected me. Because they didn't just reject me, they ruined my image of myself. They ruined the way I see myself. It seems to be that in the beginning, that's what David does. But we have to read it carefully to see that he does something a little bit different. Actually, a whole lot different. In verse 8, David was distressed because God had inflicted a breach upon Uzzah. Why was David distressed? So if it was me, I'd be distressed because Hashem just ruined my whole parade. And I was doing the best thing since Yetzias Mitzrayim, the most important thing since Yetzias Mitzrayim, and Hashem rejected it. For whatever technical reason, who cares? And so it would seem that what David is angry at is at Hashem, because he had inflicted a breach upon Uzzah. Why are you hurting Uzzah? Why did you stop our parade? But I want to offer a very different reading of this. It doesn't mean that he was...
Is it that maybe that he's mad because he really, really wanted to be the one to build the base of Mikdash, now he's worried that Hashem doesn't want him to do that?
That's part of it, but he says he's angry at Hashem. He's distressed because Hashem did so and so. You're right, 100%. That exactly is how Hashem has just rejected David's self-image. His self-image, again, was built around the concept that I'm the one who's going to build the base of Mikdash. But notice that you'll see in a moment that he doesn't serve, he's not somebody who worships his self-image. And if his self-image needs to be broken, he lets it be broken. We'll see in a moment. You said it right, Chaya. What you said is exactly right, but I'm missing a piece in the middle. The piece I'm missing in the middle is, why is he distressed? Is he distressed because Hashem rejected him, or is he distressed because of something else? What else might he be distressed at? So what I'm going to offer is something that you won't find it in the Mefarshim, but when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Nobody says anything to the contrary. Nobody explains these words really. What he's saying is, who should you have struck down, Hashem, if I did something wrong? Who's to blame?
Himself.
You should have killed me. Why did you kill Uzzah? That's his distress. And to commemorate Uzzah, who wasn't at fault, he calls the place, and that place was named Peretz Uzzah, as it is still called. But David feels responsible. The first key to breaking the self-image, to not falling too far down when we fall, is to accept responsibility. So if my friend rejected my gesture, if my roommate doesn't like the present that I gave her, if nobody appreciates my jokes, I'm not a good joke teller. The joke might be great, I just don't know how to tell the joke. You know the famous story. The three crazy guys are on the bus, and they're telling each other jokes. But they don't say the jokes because they're crazy, so they just have numbers for the jokes that they've said so many times. So one guy says 12. Everybody laughs out. The other guy says 29. They're just beside themselves with laughter. Then the third guy says 3, and they just look at him. And he says, what do you mean? It's a great joke. Why didn't you laugh? They say, you don't know how to tell a joke. Point proven. Nobody got the joke. Okay. So, the first step is to understand that when something was rejected, something negative happened, I bear the responsibility for it. I don't know what the responsibility is yet. I may not have figured it out yet. If it's a joke, it's very easy. I don't know how to tell a joke. When it's something like this, I don't know how long it took them to figure out that the problem was that they shouldn't have put the Aron on the cart. It could be more complex. You might not figure out what your responsibility is for years. But the point is that you take the responsibility upon yourself. And we'll talk about this more as we go on, but you have to understand that if you don't take the responsibility, if you're not willing to take the responsibility, then you're a victim. You're a victim of the harsh reality outside of you. And if you're a victim, you can do nothing about your life. And that's what causes people to fall into depression. When they feel victimized, when they feel that they have no control over their lives. You have to know how to restore responsibility, which really means taking back a semblance of an effect and a possibility of affecting your life, of being in some control of what your future might be like. If you become a victim, you no longer have control. One of the worst things that happens in Western psychology is that people are enabled as victims. It's the hardest thing in the world not to let somebody be a victim. A child that's born with a handicap, you can't enable them. You can't let them feel a victim of nature that they have this handicap. If you do, you've stripped them of their ability to choose what they're going to do in life. You've stripped them of their free will. And it's the hardest thing as somebody who takes care of other people. You'll see it with your children, God willing. It's the hardest thing to do is not to let somebody fall into a victim mentality. So David is not a victim here. Hashem is not out to get him. He doesn't feel that way. What he's distressed at is that he feels that an injustice was done. What was the injustice? The injustice was that David feels that if anybody should have been killed, if the sin was so great that somebody had to pay with their life for it, it should have been me, says David. Because I'm responsible here. That's what a leader does. He doesn't say, go kill one of the foot soldiers. He says, I'm responsible. And each one of us is a king over their own lives. You can't let the foot soldiers die. You have to take the responsibility. And when you take the responsibility, you can actually start doing something about the predicament that you're in. But if you don't take the responsibility, then you'll just be a victim. Okay, so setting that aside, we now come to what Chani said before. Right? Where's Chani? She's still here? Yeah. Who said it? Chaya or Chani? I missed it. Chaya said, right? Chaya, you said this before.
About what?
About David now, about David fearing that he's not Ra'ui, that he's not the right person to build the temple. Right? You said that before. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that was it.
So, David was afraid of God that day. What was his fear? He said, how can I let the ark of God come to me? I'm not who I thought I was. That's the shattering of self-image. I thought I was this incredible godsend, that now I'm king and I'm going to restore the glory of Am Yisrael and I'm going to bring Hashem into his house. And I thought I was all the... This is what I was working for my whole life. And suddenly Hashem tells me, you're not the right person. Maybe I'm not the right person. So if you're not the right person, this is another form of distress. This is another form of rejection. What do you do when somebody tells you you're not the right person for the job I thought you could do? What do most people do when they're rejected in that way? What happens if you work your whole life? He was 40 years old already. And he was working towards this. What would you expect him to do? The whole thing he was king for was to build the Beis HaMikdash. And now Hashem tells him, maybe you're not the right person to build the Beis HaMikdash. What would you expect him to do? Obviously, take his crown off. Here you go, Hashem. This is not for me. Find somebody else. Obviously, you're not interested in what I have to bring to the table. That's what rejection causes a person to do when their self-image has taken hold of them. Self-image tells us that this is what I am, and I can't be anything else. So if you're not going to let me be this, I'm just not interested in playing. That's what self-image does. It causes you to react with the same rejection that you were rejected by. So if I was rejected, for instance, some of you are listening and some of you are, I don't know what you're doing. So if I look at you, here I said I would talk about my own self-image. So I came here as a guy with a hat, well, not really a hat, just have a yarmulke on, and I'm supposed to know something and be this teacher or whatever. And I'm supposed to stand in front of a bunch of girls 18 and 19 and 20 years old, or however old, and captivate them for 45 minutes or an hour, and teach them something. That's my self-image, right? And then I fail utterly. Nobody's listening. Right now, some people are listening. But if nobody listens, so what do I do? If I'd be rejected that way, a teacher walks into a class, they're no good. Nobody wants to listen. Nobody's interested. What should they do? What would you do?
Keep teaching. It's their job. Even if people don't look like they're listening, sometimes people take things in and they might, just the fact that they might actually get something from it is the whole point.
Okay.
You're there for them. You're not there for their validation. You're there to help them. So if they're not listening, it's their problem. But you're going to do whatever you can to get through to them.
So next time I need coaching, I'll come to you, Chaya, because you said the right thing. That's what people need to hear. But I'm not sure that that's how I feel. That's what I need to hear, but it's not necessarily what I feel. Just because I have, a white beard and I have a big yarmulke doesn't mean that I don't have a self-image. And when it's shattered, maybe your group can't shatter it. Maybe it can. I don't know. But when it's shattered, our impulse is to run away. Because if you don't want me, then I don't want to be here. That's what David should have done. You know what makes it even worse? If I would leave and the next day you'd bring somebody else, and when that person taught, everybody would be captivated. That would be adding, as they say, insult to injury. I'm not just going to injure you, I'm also going to insult you. But listen to what happens to David. Exactly this. He's rejected, and Hashem adds insult to the injury. So David would not bring the Ark of God to his place in the city of David. Instead, David diverted it to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. I don't want to get into what this Obed-Edom thing is. It's a type of job. It's discussed in other places in the Tanakh, mostly in Divrei Hayamim, in Chronicles. Not going to get into it. He wasn't a non-Jew. He was a Jew. Even though it says he's an Obed-Edom. Edom was Edomites. It's the offspring of Esav. He brought it to his house. The Ark of God remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months. And what does David hear? God blessed his house and his whole household. Everybody gave birth there. I think even the men. It was reported to King David, God has blessed Obed-Edom's house and all that belongs to him because of the Ark of God. The exact opposite of what happened to David. What should be David's normal reaction? If you like Obed-Edom so much, so have him build the temple for you. What do you want from me? When I brought the ark, the only thing that happened to me was injury and insult. And now you're adding the fact that you love him more than you love me. I'm not interested. That's if you have self-image. If you feel that you've been rejected, your self-image has been rejected, it's very hard to continue with the same path. Chaya said something interesting. She said, you're not here for yourself, you're here for them. Okay. But if somebody else can do the job better, that'll serve the same purpose. And obviously, Obed-Edom is better at it. Because look, when he has the ark with him, and that's the whole point of having a king, to build the Beis Hamikdash, this is very interesting. You have a whole group of people behind you. What are they doing? Anyway, maybe they came to hear the class. If you have self-image and your image of yourself is rejected, then the normal thing that people do is they reject the whole role and they become depressed. I don't have a place in the world because what I thought I was supposed to do, it turns out that nobody is interested in. Do you know how many parents at the end of the day feel rejected by their children? They continue doing the job because it turns out that the neighbors don't want the children. So there's nobody else to take care of them. But that's exactly how parents feel. Because I was trying to do something good, and all I get back is rejection and complaints and so on and so forth. So I must be really terrible at my job. Again, nobody else wants to do it, so most parents stick to it. But some parents don't know how to take that. It happens between couples. I was supposed to be a husband. I was supposed to make my wife happy. And she's not happy. I don't make her happy. There are people who don't know how to take that. They don't know how to say, That's just my self-image. My duty, though, is to continue. It's very hard for them because they worship that self-image. We can all fall in this. I have to tell you, so many of the unhappy couples in the world are exactly because of that. Because they expected to be good at what they do. And it turns out they're not so great. What do you do when you're not so great at something that you have to do? You learn. You do better. If you don't have self-image, you can continue to work on yourself. When you have self-image, when you have a picture of what it was supposed to be like, what I was supposed to act like, what the results of my action were supposed to be, when that fills your mind, it becomes very hard to take a step back, to rethink, and to change. Because all you feel is the rejection. So David teaches here an incredible lesson. He's been insulted, he's been injured, and he's been insulted again by Hashem. Who knows me better than Hashem? But what does David do? When he hears that God has blessed Oved Edom's house, how does he take it? It's not an insult against me. It's a sign for me. A sign that what? It's time to try again. It's time for me to try again. If Hashem is now in a better mood, call it a better mood for lack of a better name, then it's now time for me to try again. So what does David do? Thereupon David went and brought up the ark of God from the house of Oved Edom to the city of David amid rejoicing. He's not a second choice. Because he's willing not to worship his self-image as somebody who should have gotten it right the first time. You know what? It could take me 1,000 times to get it right. But before we continue, I want to take from this one more thing, because Chaya already said it, so I'll develop it. I'm here for them. What does that mean? So let me take the simple, you've all probably babysat, and it's a good preparation for being a parent. One of the big mistakes that parents do is they do something with a child with an expectation of getting something back. The simplest example. You read a child a story, or you spend half an hour with them, and you're really tired because the baby kept you up at night, whatever it is. You're really tired, you want to go take a nap. And you tell the child, okay, we're finished now, and I'm going to take a short nap, so be quiet. And what happens after 3 minutes, just as you fell asleep? Something happens. Either they fight with each other, the children, if there's more than one, or the child comes to you and says, I need this, I need that, but I told you that, I told you a story, I read you a story because I wanted you to be quiet. We do so many things because we have expectations of being rewarded for what we did. And when we don't get what we expected, we don't get the expected reward back, what do? We get angry. Same thing. You have to understand that the reason we're here is not for the reward. That's what the sages say, Sachar behai al maleka. There is no reward in this world. They don't mean to say that life is going to be terrible. They don't mean to say that you shouldn't be reimbursed for the money for the work that you've done. They don't mean to say that you should live your life with a feeling that things are not fair. What they mean to say is, don't expect the reward. Don't do things for the reward, because it doesn't come in this world. Not because there is no reward, there sometimes is, but because you can't live life that way. You have to do things because you think they're important. You have to do things because of their value. don't expect the reward. Don't expect somebody to come and praise you for what you did, because if you're looking for the praise, don't do it. You'll be upset. You'll be rejected. You'll be distressed, because the hardest thing to learn in life is nobody knows how to reward you the way you really want. I'll say it in the positive, that the only person who knows how to hug you the way you want to be hugged is you yourself. Nobody knows what you need. Nobody. So you can't expect to get it from anybody. You have to understand that. We do things like David did because they're the right thing to do, not because of a reward that I might or might not receive. Don't build expectations on rewards. Expectations are the short route to a life of Gehenna. It can break the strongest person if you have expectations. Now, sometimes when people hear this, it means, since I can never get what I want, maybe I shouldn't engage in the world. Maybe I shouldn't engage in life. But that's exactly having expectations, because I want what I want. And now I heard that I can't get what I want. Life is about doing what's right and what I think is good, in spite of what might be given back to me. I want to be with people because it's important to be with people, not because they may or may not pat me on the back. I want to be me'orav b'dat im habriot, as Chazal say, which means to be conscious of other people. Because being conscious of other people is how I become a better person. It's how I know what I can do for others, by knowing what they need. But I can't expect anybody to reward me in like for my own contribution. Because if I do expect that to happen, I'll be, what's the word? Mughzav. Anybody know what mughzav is in English? See, when you're here for too long, you forget all these words. Well, what is it? Say again? Disappointed. Thank you. Right. I'll be disappointed. The people that don't do are disappointed people. Every shaliach of the Rebbe is somebody who learned from the Rebbe how not to be disappointed. Of course they're disappointed. Of course they don't get what they want. They never get what they want. The Rebbe never got what he wanted. The biggest thing that he wanted, he didn't get. He wanted to bring Mashiach. He didn't get it. But he was never in a state of despair because he didn't get what he wanted. Because he never let that get to him. Because he knew that he was doing it because it's the right thing to do. Because that's what shlichus means. So David is the ultimate shaliach of Hashem in that sense. He knows that even if right now it looks like there's somebody who can do this better, I can't remove the yoke of the responsibility from myself, because I'm the king. I'm the one who Hashem said, and Hashem knew about these falls that would happen. When Hashem told Samuel, Shmuel, to anoint David as king, he knew everything that would happen. And David says, if Hashem can see through it, I can see through it also. And so he decides that even though it looks like somebody else is getting all the reward, Oved Edom is getting all the reward for having the ark, it's still my duty to build the temple. That hasn't changed. And so he does it again. This time he does it right. This time they don't put it on a cart. And then they do all what they do. And David exemplifies everything that we've just talked about, which is, I am a servant of Hashem. So David whirled, verse 14, with all his might before God. V'David mechalker Umefazez, there's a word missing here, I think. Bechol oz lifnei avaya v'David chagur efod bad. Who is David? Like the Rebbe says in the Sikha, he's a prophet. He wears his prophetic clothing, his prophetic uniform, to dance before the ark. We're going to say something very deep about these words, before Hashem, in a moment. But imagine the situation. Everybody is walking alongside the ark. The Levites are carrying the ark. And David is with his face, he's going backwards like in a chasna. And he's walking backwards, facing the ark, lifnei Hashem, before Hashem, just as we'll stand in Yom Kippur, lifnei Hashem titaru, before Hashem you purified. And he dances in his prophetic clothing, showing what? That he is the example of a servant of Hashem. That it doesn't matter, as they say in English, come hell or high water, I have a duty to do. And I'm not just going to do the duty with a grim face. Because this is a joyous moment, I'm full of joy. In fact, the Rambam uses this, and we'll get to it later. The Rambam uses this image in an incredible way at the end of the laws of Lulav, if anybody wants to look there. So, he's dancing before the ark. He's going backwards. And he goes this way all the way to it's about a distance of about 10 kilometers from where we think Oved Edom was. It's actually, Oved Edom is about where I live in Ramon. It's actually very close to where you live, where you're now, in Har Shmuel. So it's about 10 kilometers from there to David's city. And this is how he goes backwards. And he's whirling with all his might before God. Thus David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of God. This is why, because he's a servant of God, and he's lowly. This is the word we're looking for. He doesn't say this until the very end, but everything we've just described is lowliness, and we'll explain why as we go on. But this is, we all have to have, well, I'll say it like this. Why does the Torah tell us stories? The Torah could have been a book of advice. It should have said, be lowly. But if the Torah wouldn't tell us a story, give us a figure of a person who's like that, we wouldn't know what that looks like. We'd know a word and we'd research it and think about it, but we wouldn't know what it really means. From this story, and if you live this story in your head, with all the parts that we've talked about, you can actually recreate it in your heart. You can understand where he's standing, and you can identify with it and find that. So this is all called, in the end, he calls this lowliness. He says, when Michal says to him, Shaul, my father would never have done all this. And David says that's exactly why Hashem rejected him. Yeah, I know we have another class, but what can I do? So, the only thing I can do is, I can tell you the 1 minute. Lifnei Hashem. How much does that equal? That equals 196. Havaya is 26. Okay? And Lifnei, do the math, is 170. So together it's 196. That's 14 squared. 14 is the value of whose name? The hero of our story. Who's equal to 14? Whose name is equals 14? Who were we talking about for last hour?
Okay.
David. David is equal to 14.
Wow.
And Chabad is equal to 14 also. So also very important. You have to get that. Okay. Just to say one more word. One more word. The point is that you always have to understand that you're the only one who can turn your face to Hashem. Hashem never turns his face from you. Think about this. For two people to stand face to face, they both have to face each other. Hashem is always before you. The only one who can turn his face is you. You have to turn it back to be Lifnei Hashem. All rejection, the feeling of rejection is I turn my back to you. When I'm rejected, I turn my back. When I have lowliness, I can turn my face back and be Lifnei Hashem. So we'll end with this, and I'll wish you a K'tiva v'chatima tova, Shana tova m'tuka, and we should hopefully, God willing, in good health, meet again next year, 5781 Shabbos.
Thank you so much for making it.
Shana tova.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rabbi.